So I finally got my hands on the Lenovo X1 Nano. I was literally eyeballing this thing when it was announced a few months ago, not because it's this revolutionary laptop that's gonna change the world, but because of its size. Like, this thing is tiny, and it does this without having to sacrifice a lot of performance or features. Now, this is expensive, and when this thing first came out, the SKU that I have here costed over $3,000. But the good news is, like Samsung, Lenovo tends to discount their products over time. You can pick this guy up for $1,900. Like, if you're truly looking for the lightest Ultrabook that you can find that doesn't sacrifice a lot of performance, it's this guy. It weighs 2.14 pounds. This is 1.5 pounds lighter than the MacBook Air or Pro. In fact, I have one right here, at least the Pro, to give you guys some context on the size difference. Now, it doesn't look like much from the top-down camera, but if you were here in the studio, you would see the difference. In fact, if you were to pick up the Nano and pick up the Pro in your hand, this feels significantly lighter. Like, you place this thing in your bag, you're not gonna feel it like you would with a normal Ultrabook. The other thing is you're looking for durability. You know, all the ThinkPads, at least the more expensive ThinkPads, have been mil-STD tested. They've been tested for dust, they've been tested in different environments, they're spill-proof, they offer feature sets that protect the laptop from damage. And the third thing is business features. Most of you guys watching my video don't care for these business features, but if you're in the corporate environment, if your IT department requires it, this laptop is gonna be much more secure than your typical consumer laptop. Now, if there's one area they had to make a bit of a sacrifice, it's definitely the ports. Like, you don't get the same I/O selection as you would on the Carbon or ThinkPad Extreme. You only get 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the left-hand side. The good news though is that they're Thunderbolt 4, which means you can pretty much do anything you want as long as you have a dongle to connect to it. You have power delivery, and it also fast charges, so you can top this thing up pretty quickly. It's that same feel you'd get on the Extreme or Carbon. It's using that carbon weave or fiber that makes it feel very durable. You do get a lot of fingerprints on the top of the lid. Like, this thing is gonna get dirty fast. The flex is very minimal on top. The keyboard, it's that ThinkPad keyboard you know I love. Great tactile keys. They're not as deep as the Extremes, but they're deep enough for a laptop this size. It has that nice click. The only other area where there's a bit of flex would be the keyboard, but I'm really not too concerned. You still have the Lenovo nub, or nipple as I'd like to call it. In fact, I even matched my shirt to the nipple today just so I can show you my appreciation for it. The touchpad is a bit small, but considering the fact that this is a very tiny chassis, overall I feel like it's a great size. Fingerprint scanner to quickly log you in, and of course it has an IR blaster in the webcam area so that you can use Windows Hello to log into. Now, the cool thing is Lenovo's laptops, or at least some of them, have a presence sensing tool. So the IR camera scans the area to see if you're there. And if it recognizes your face, it automatically logs you in. And if it sees you walk away, it will automatically lock the computer. Even though this is a very small laptop, they were able to cram in 4 speakers, 2 upward firing speakers, then you have 2 woofers on the bottom of the laptop. They're Dolby Atmos, and the Dolby Access software is really cool because you can set up presets for the type of stuff you're listening to. Presets for music, presets for movies, and it'll automatically switch between those presets depending on the application you're using. Now, the MacBook Pro speakers obviously sound better because there's more of them that are firing up, but for a laptop this size, it actually produces very clean sound. Display, 16 by 10, 13 inches. It feels big. It doesn't feel tiny or like you're typing on a cramped display. And they're giving you a display that actually has great color gamut and color accuracy. Like, I could totally feel comfortable doing design work on this and not having to worry that the colors are not gonna match up. It's even bright, like over 400 nits of brightness, making this pretty good for outdoor work. Now, you do have a webcam on top. It's only 720p, but if you need to make a conference call or whatever it is, at least you have one available. So remember in the beginning of the video, I told you this was an i7 Tiger Lake processor. Well, it's not the one you're thinking of. It's not the 116 5G7 that you'd see in laptops like the Razer Book 13 or Acer Swift 3. This is using the 116 0G7. The difference is that the 0G7 only has a TDP of 15 watts, whereas the other one has a TDP of 28 watts. The more power, the more you can push the laptop. The less power you can provide the CPU, it just can't sustain those boost clocks as long, and of course you're not going to get that sustained performance over a long period of time. The good news though is that this thing is still very capable. It's faster than most 10th gen Intel processors from last year. Like, you're compiling code on this, and yes, it's going to take a bit longer, but it's still fairly respectable. If you're using Adobe Photoshop, same sort of idea. Like, I wouldn't buy this to run stabilization effects all day, but if you're editing a bunch of photos, you're not gonna feel like this laptop is slow. The only thing I wouldn't buy it for is obviously gaming, and I wouldn't be editing 4K video on this all day. But if you need to make some quick changes, it will handle it. You're not gonna have too many issues. Heat management is also great. This laptop never got too hot. It does a good job of keeping the CPU temps down. Lenovo is prioritizing fan noise. Because this is a business Ultrabook, it wants to make sure those fans are always quiet. Internally, nothing to get too excited about. There's only one fan, and that's fine considering the CPU only boosts up to 15 watts. You have a pretty small battery. It's around 47 watt hours, and I was only able to get about 11 hours of use before needing to charge. There is only one thing that's upgradable, and that's the SSD. Now, it has fairly good read and write speeds, but it doesn't match the read and write speeds of the Carbon. But this is something you can swap out and upgrade if you want more storage down the road. So here's the thing. If you're a regular consumer, I feel like there's a lot better options for the money. You're gonna get better specs, you're gonna get more value, and probably even save money by buying something else over this. I feel like this laptop is perfect for one type of individual. You're the person who will be traveling a lot when things get better. You're gonna be traveling a lot around the world, and you prioritize weight over everything else. You're someone who's going to different environments, and you want your laptop to be durable, whether it's a hot environment or a cold one. And the third reason is business features. You work at a corporation, you run your own business, and the features that this laptop provides can be used by your company. And if you're that person, then you're gonna love the X1 Nano. But for everybody else, save your money. Just get a regular consumer laptop because you'll get a lot more performance, a lot more or better battery life, and you'll probably save yourself some money too. If you're interested in checking this out, there'll be a link to it in the description down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.